started with our midweek devotion. Let's get right into it. It's based on a couple verses from the fourth chapter of the book of Joshua. It says, "Each of you lift up a stone on his shoulder to match the number of tribes of the Israelites. This will be a symbol among you. In the future, your children may ask, 'What do these stones mean to you?' Then you will tell them that the water of the Jordan was cut off before the Lord's covenant chest. When it crossed over the Jordan, the water of the Jordan was cut off. These stones will be an enduring memorial for the Israelites." Unbeknownst to me, I was born into a family tradition. I didn't get to choose it. It just fell into my lap. Dating back to the 1870s, every family member on my dad's side has been placed in a wooden antique bassinet when they are a newborn. Me, my brother, my father, my aunt, my grandfather, my great aunt, and on back, I think 6 or 7, maybe even 8 generations. The bassinet has traveled across the country. It's been dusted after years of non-use, disassembled and then reassembled and fixed with spare parts. And a record book has accompanied it with all who have laid their head to rest. That follows the bassinet too. You have to write the name in. My name's in there. My daughter's names are in there. This bassinet is a reminder, a testimony, a memorial of my family, of those who've gone before. And as much it is a chore to be the one to house the thing, it is rather large. Memorials like this are important. They remind us we are connected to a story wider than ourselves. Our bassinet is something tangible we can point to show how our family has endured. That's why I'm drawn to the story of the Israelites crossing the Jordan River into the Promised Land. Not as well known as the crossing of the Red Sea, this miracle of water standing still is just as important. It's not about the miracle itself, but what it signifies. That God is with the people. God promised Abraham that his descendants would set up shop in the Promised Land, and when Joshua leads this people across the river, it is a promise kept. But God knows people forget. We forget what we had for lunch last week. We forget people's phone numbers. We forget what's really important in life. God knows we forget. So God sets up reminders. He did it for the Israelites. The 12 stones serve as a memorial, a testimony to God's action on their behalf, how God enabled them to get to the Promised Land. God knew the people would forget, whether it was because of time or success or whatever. So God put in place a way for the people's memories to be jogged. Once when I was a youth minister, a curious 8th grader asked me a question. Why do we have communion every week? Doesn't having it so often make it mean less? It's a good question, but I told him we have communion every week because we believe Jesus told us to. It says it in the New Testament that we're supposed to partake of the Lord's Supper whenever we meet. Do this in remembrance of me. But I could tell that answer didn't really satisfy him. And while it is true, it's not necessarily meaningful to a 13-year-old. It doesn't touch the heart. So I tried a different avenue. I brought up this concept of a reminder. Communion is a weekly gift from God to remind us how God feels about us. That no matter what happens in the week, we can come back to the table and be reminded of God's love and forgiveness. God knew we would forget. So Jesus gave us a way to remember and take hold of that grace and mercy anew each week. Because in the future, your children may ask, why do we take communion? Then you will tell them. They are living symbols of how God feels about you. Whether it is stones by a river or simple bread and cup, God gives us entryways to be reminded and to learn of God's love and care. These symbols are, well, a symbol of God's grace. I wonder what symbols are meaningful and important to you. Thanks for joining me for this week's midweek devotion. I hope you heard a word of grace in this. If you like what you heard, please like and share it with a friend, someone who you think needs to have this reminder. You're invited to join us for worship. It's on Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. We're here in person, or you can join us online here. But if not, our benediction's the same as always. God be with you till we meet again.